The stuff I want to talk about today is more a work with actually Jochen Hartmann at he's in Munich, and Rachel Zalto was actually in the company we collaborated with, which will be clear in a minute. But really, the question we ask is the diversity in models in advertising. Now, this is the only paper I ever had where when I use the word model, I actually mean what the rest of the world think when they hear the word model, right? Only in this building we hear model and we think mathematics. So the diversity of the models in advertising, what happens with it over time, and specifically what happened around the murder of George Floyd and the BLM movement surrounding it. And when you look at diversity in advertising, there is some, you start seeing more diversity in the models in advertising over time. But there is still a strong claim that it's not enough, meaning that it definitely doesn't represent the population by any means. So what we did here is we collaborated with a company, with a display advertising company, and that's where Rachel work in. And we had hundreds of thousands of ads. And we used machine learning to detect the race of the models in the ad, among other things, gender, race, among other things of the models in the ad. And then looked at what happens over time, and specifically we are going to look at what happened to supply, meaning do we see more ads that are diverse, meaning have black models in them, even combinations of races in the ad, and what happens in terms of demand, what happened to consumers when they see an ad that is more diverse versus less diverse, right? Do we see higher click-through rates, for example, when an ad has a black model versus not? And specifically, again, we're going to look what happened with this, both supply and demand, right surrounding the murder of George Floyd and the BLM movement. And so first of all, looking at supply. So what you see here is over time, we have, as you can see, we have about half a year before May of 2020 and the murder of George Floyd, and then we have kind of a year and a half almost after that. And the y-axis here is it's actually the y-axis is here. It's the likelihood of seeing a black model in the ad, right? And what you see is that first of all, good news, there is some positive trend happening over time, right? Right around, actually, again, the murder of George Floyd, you see actually a jump, but this jump lasted for about 6 months and then reverted back. Reverted back at least to the positive trend. So good news, bad news, depends how you look at it. But by the way, there are other evidence that a lot of the effect of what the BLM movement had, it was about that 6 month type of long. But definitely had a positive effect on appearance of black models in ad in the 6 months following these events. Again, positive trend, some really regime shift, but goes back to this positive trend. What happens to supply? What happens to consumers? So first of all, maybe again, good news, you see that overall, you look at ads that have black models versus not, there is higher click-through rates on ads that do have black models. So maybe if there is a sign for a win-win in society, right, where you kind of you do good and you do well, yeah. I mean, if you have black model in your ad, you are like the click-through rates on these ads in our data, and again, we have hundreds of thousands of ads here, was higher, and you see that actually, if you look at the difference before and after May of 2020, you see that it increased. So there was a positive impact in terms of consumer reaction. So not only supply, not only more ads, but also the click-through rates, if you will, on these ads. How do consumers react to these ads? So overall, kind of summary of the findings, at least from the field data, from these almost 500,000 ads that we have. By the way, a unique feature of these ads was that this ad we had sibling ads in these ads, which means sometimes we had exactly the same advertisers, but changing. So we control for the advertisers, we control for a lot of things. I don't show you the analytics underlying it, but the same advertiser often had ads that were, only a white model, only a black model, sometimes even mix of the two. But overall, what we find, positive time trend. We find the positive time trend, by the way, both for demand and for supply. So over time, more ads with black models, higher click-through rates of ads with black models. For both of them, we find a shift around the murder of George Floyd, but unfortunately, the shift was not very long. It lasted, again, somewhere between 3 to 6 months, these effects on both supply and demand. We also replicated this in an experiment. So we ran an experiment. We should use Lens tool here, probably to get the experiment even better. But we created ads. We started actually with ads for wine. Then COVID, with COVID, we say, how about we also take away any attractiveness type of aspects of it? Let's cover the face. We do an ad for a face mask. And the ads varied. We did a white, black, black. We also had an Asian white combination here. And you see kind of a similar trend that we saw in the real data, in the field data. This is real data too, but in the field data, where in both cases you see higher click-through rates for the black-white over the white and black even over both. The interesting thing is then we split it between white respondents and black respondents, because in the secondary data, I don't know who clicked. And you see actually that the effect comes from, even a stronger effect actually coming from the white respondents versus the black or African-American respondents in our data. So interestingly, the demand side comes from both sides, but even stronger from the white respondents. So I'm out of time, so thank you.
You talked about click-through. What about conversion? Like how many people are becoming customers?
Yeah, so we had limited data on conversion in this data. We did find some effect, but it was weaker. The effect on conversion was weaker than the effect on the click-through rate, but it was, by the way, in here, the question was likely to buy, was not actually, so in the experiment, it was directly towards conversion and the effect was there. In the data, we had an effect, but it was weaker, but the data on many of these advertisers, we didn't have conversion. So for those we tested it. Yes.
Thank you. Given that you found the click-through rates for black models was higher, I'm curious how marketing executives make sense of your results. Are they just unaware of this? Do you think there might be deliberate bias going on?
I mean, if you look at this, they may be aware, right? they are including more black models over time. So overall, this is a supply trend, and supply trend is overall positive.
Right. Not at the rate that's
yeah.
the same.
Right. Yeah.
Suggest that they should be.
Correct. So there is some at least positive response also from advertisers, seems like, in terms of realizing that it does seem to work. Is it enough or not? I don't know. It's hard for me from here to say whether they do it enough, right? But at least it seems like there is also increase on the advertiser side, which is, by the way, the fact that we worked with a company, they wanted to find out, so at least they're interested in the question of finding out what is really the effect. And again, it's very rare that we find, maybe kind of a combination of many of the talks today. It's only if we find these win-wins, right, that we can move forward outside of regulation. This is one of these examples of a win-win, which is nice, is that we find some case where the company can do the right thing, and it seems to be also the thing that would actually get them higher click-through rates, at least.